Hi, good morning, everybody. Sorry for the small technical difficulty. Thank you all very, very much for joining us here this morning for the launch of our report, which is Youth Climate Voices. And we really are delighted to welcome Minister O'Gorman here today from the Department of Children, Equality, Disability, Integration and Youth. So thank you, Minister O'Gorman, for being here today. I know you have a very busy schedule, but we really do appreciate you being here. As Emer said, we're launching today our Youth Climate Voices report. This details the survey that we carried out in October of last year. And the survey was part of a much larger project that we were involved with called the Youth Climate Justice Challenge, which we ran in conjunction with the Irish Girl Guides, the Girls Brigade, No Name Club, SpunOut and the Young Irish Filmmakers. And we're going to give you a little bit of an insight into that later on as well. Our motivation really for doing the survey was that we, as was hear a lot about young people's concerns about climate change, and we really wanted to find out more about this and really to delve deeper into what young people are thinking and what young people are feeling. And so in our survey, we're looking at what young people think about climate change, how they feel they're being impacted, what they see as barriers to them getting involved in climate issues, what encourages them to act, what supports they need, what their vision for the future was. And then we also wanted to find out a little bit about where they get their information from and how they use social media as well. So as Emer said, we had over 1,000 responses last year from 15 to 25-year-olds. I've had a great time, as well as my colleagues on the team, going through the survey findings. And I really do hope you find them as interesting and insightful as I have. And I hope that what the survey does is that it helps feed into your work and really helps drive what I think is the climate action change that we really need, and supports young people as well. Through the work in ECO-UNESCO, as I said, we've been very aware over many years that young people are very concerned about the environment.
That might be some technical difficulty on Elaine's end there, so that's totally fine. We'll wait until we get her back. But for now, what we were going to lead up to was us actually showing you the video that we produced based on the results of the survey. So I'm going to share my screen now.
Youth voices on issues impacting the health of our planet have never been louder, clearer, or more important. And so, in October 2020, ECO-UNESCO partnered with SpunOut.ie to survey young people on their outlook on topics such as climate change and climate justice. 1,043 young people took part in this survey. So, what do the survey results show us? We can see that 77% of young people feel very concerned or extremely concerned about climate change. The biggest problems that were identified were 48% of young survey takers ranked big businesses as their primary concern, and 38% of young people rank changes in government policies as the most prominent factor that could have an impact on tackling climate change. Over a third of young people mentioned that they're experiencing a form of eco-anxiety, or a fear over what is happening or might happen to the natural world if we keep polluting at current levels. 55% of young people feel they're not being listened to when they discuss climate-based issues. So, what are the main solutions that the young people of Ireland are calling for? Young people believe that changes in big business practices and government policies would have the biggest impact in tackling the climate crisis. 52% of young people stated that they wanted further education on climate-based topics. When asked what areas young people would like more information on, the top results were sustainable energy, the role of business and corporations in climate change, protecting nature and biodiversity, and how to take action on climate change. When asked what barriers there are to young people engaging in climate action, 59% of respondents said there was a lack of local opportunities to get involved. 50% wanted information on how to get more involved in the first place. And 45% wanted to learn skills in communicating their message to policymakers, organising environmental campaigns, and public speaking. We asked young people what actions they had taken on climate change. The survey shows that the most popular action among young people is reducing plastic waste, 89%. 81% of respondents have started using public transport, bicycles, and walking to reduce their personal effects on global warming. 60% are raising awareness with friends and family, and 53% of young people are buying second-hand clothes. 58% of young people say they are actively campaigning for change at their school, youth organisation, college or workplace, with 24% of these being involved in a local environmental action project. We asked young people what a greener, fairer world would look like to them. Here are some of their responses.
Where animals and plants have space to thrive in their natural habitats, and where all humans have access to their basic necessities.
Where we don't cut corners to save money at the climate's expense. Where the first question is, what impact instead of what price?
Every policy in government should have an environmental aspect to it, because without a functioning planet, we have nothing.
Multinational companies taking responsibility for harmful practices, or being fined a sizable tax if they don't change, and no waiting to implement it.
To access the full Youth Climate Justice Survey report, go to ECO-UNESCO.ie or click the link in the description below. We are actively seeking youth support to protect and better our planet. Whether you're a passionate young person, a youth leader looking to take action, or a parent or teacher looking to inspire change, join us and make a difference. Sign up to our newsletter and see how you can get further involved at ECO-UNESCO.ie.
Thank you very much, Emer, for jumping in there, and apologies to everybody, but that was some technical issues and technical difficulties on my side. I suppose just from our survey, and you can see from the survey results there, and one of the things I think I was going to highlight this morning was the feeling, I suppose, that of eco-anxiety and of young people being fearful for their futures and that their mental health is impacted. And I think the survey really highlighted this, and this was something that when I was actually going through the survey results, I was quite, I suppose I was quite taken aback. I mean, even though I'd be aware, and we would be aware in ECO-UNESCO of the eco-anxiety that young people are feeling, that there was such a level that was there. And I think that it's something that we don't want young people to feel, and I think we want our young people to feel hopeful and to look forward to their futures, and to have a very bright future. I think we all have a role to play in that. I suppose one of the things I want to highlight this morning is that I think now really is a time to move on climate action. I can see, we can see that young people really care about climate change and climate action and climate justice and all of these environmental issues, and they want to see action, but they want to see action, they're taking that individual action, they're taking, and they see local actions, but they also want to see systemic change, and they're looking for that type of systemic change, whether that be coming from government or a big business. But it's really important, I think, that we're all working together on this. I mean, if we look, for example, where we are at the moment with COVID-19, we're in a pandemic, we're coming through a pandemic, but I think that after this, we're going to have societal changes. We're going to have taken those societal changes on board. But we're also going through a climate and biodiversity emergency. And so, I mean, I would feel, can we not put in place national and global responses where we look at the climate emergency, and where we all can work together to create that systemic change and really to create that hopeful future that we want and that bright future that we really want for our young people. Minister, as I said, we're delighted that you could join us here today. I understand that the department are committed to hearing young people's voices and very much welcome this. It was one thing that had come up on the survey, that young people were feeling that their voices weren't being heard. We want to thank the department, because I know the department have put funding into the youth climate justice side. Last year was the first year, and this project was made possible because of the funding coming from the Youth Climate Justice Fund. So thank you very much for that. And obviously we'd very much like to highlight the importance of continued investment into climate action programmes, climate justice programmes and youth support programmes as well. I'd really like to thank SpunOut, who are our partners in the survey, and we're really delighted to work with them on this very important initiative. So now, Minister, it's over to yourself, and we'd like to invite you to formally launch our report, Youth Climate Voices. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Thanks, I appreciate that, Elaine and Emer. Can you hear me all right? Could you give me a thumbs up there if you can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Perfect. That's great. Listen, thanks very much. Look, I'm absolutely delighted to be here today and having the opportunity to say a few words to mark the launch of the Youth Climate Justice Survey, and to acknowledge the important work in this area that's been undertaken by ECO-UNESCO, the young people involved, as well as all the young workers and volunteers. And in particular, I'd like to acknowledge the climate justice change that was spearheaded by ECO-UNESCO, and I know that work was done in collaboration with a number of other groups like SpunOut, like the Girl Guides, the Girls Brigade, the Young Irish Filmmakers, and the No Name Club as well. And I know that challenge invited young people to explore the issues surrounding climate change and motivated them to stand up and to take action and to create a more equitable change. And it clearly is reflected in the young people's commitment to the future and their commitment to the environment. And look, my department are, in our role as the Department for Children and Youth, we're committed to supporting young people being part of this really important conversation about how we as a country and how we as a society respond to the very real challenges of climate change, but respond in a way that is just as well. And that's why within the funding streams that our department have created, we have a fund to support ideas around a just transition to a more environmentally friendly and a less carbon intensive economy. And I know the survey that we're speaking about today highlights the very real concerns of young people about climate change. And I understand about 80% of respondents were either concerned or very concerned about climate change. But one of the other things that really stood out to me was the very high number of young people who were cited as having a lack of knowledge about how to contact their local politicians or any sort of decision makers, and they saw that actually as a barrier to action on climate change. And even higher numbers, I think it was 55% of contributors stated that they didn't feel that they were being listened to. I think that is very, very concerning. And it is vitally important that young people are supported to influence policy making and to engage with policy makers and politicians at both a local but also at a national decision-making processes, and to ensure that their views are allowed be fed into decision-making processes in a meaningful way. And fostering that and supporting that, as I said earlier, is one of the key missions of this department. Within the survey, the participants identified or defined climate justice as protecting the most vulnerable people from climate change, and that emerged as a really important concern among those who participated in it. And the Climate Justice Fund that I referenced earlier on was established following on from the United Nations focus on youth engagement as part of the global response to climate change, and in line with our own national climate action plan. And the Youth Climate Justice Fund supports youth-led action and innovation on climate justice at community level, at regional level, and obviously at national level as well. And the aim of that fund is to further raise climate justice awareness among young people and to empower young people to influence and to sustain local, regional and national climate justice change. And, you know, the creation of that fund, I believe, is a recognition of really the leading role that young people have taken on a global level in the conversation on climate change. And since the launch of that fund, young people, youth workers and volunteers have been innovated and collaborated to advance a range of initiatives within the areas of network building and communications, research, awareness raising, influencing policymakers, and also introducing very practical climate justice changes within their own individual communities. And this survey that we're launching today speaks to the high quality of the projects supported through the fund. And I do want to acknowledge the hard work and the innovation and the leadership that has been shown by those involved in the project. And especially, I think it is especially to be commended in light of the current circumstances in which we're all working. And just thinking on the video that was played earlier on there and listening to that quote that when decisions are being taken, be it at that national, international, national or local level, that the question should be what action, not what price. And I think that just really rang home to me. And as Elaine was saying in her own remarks, there is an absolute need to take action now. And I think it is important to state that the government is bringing forward a new climate action bill that's going to contain very significant new targets for Ireland, both medium term and long term 2050 targets, but also new mechanisms about how we reach those targets. This idea of a carbon budget that would be run every 5 years, and that we will commit to how much carbon we'll emit now in the next 5 years and in the subsequent 5 years as well. And that model has proved successful in the UK and in other countries in cutting their emissions. So this government will be introducing that new climate action bill, and it will be in the Dáil shortly. But there's also practical measures that the government is taking, and you've probably seen that we're announcing a consultation on banning smoky coal across the country as an example of something that both contributes to carbon emissions but also contributes to air pollution in our towns and cities and across our country. But that issue of smoky coal, it's still used because it is quite cheap, and that ties into the question of the just transition that I spoke about earlier on, and I know is very prominent in the those who've responded to this particular survey. So it's about enabling people to make that change to a greener and a more climate friendly way of living, and that's a key role of the government as well. So as I said, young people are leading the way in this area, and it's so important that their vision, their passion, as well as their research, their advocacy and activism are leveraged to tackle the climate crisis. And as I say, I'm very glad that my department is able to support these important actions so we can ensure that everyone across the country has the opportunity and are supported in addressing the challenges of the climate crisis in a way that is fair and just. I'd just like to take this chance to bring to your attention the opportunity for young people to participate in the consultations as part of the upcoming National Dialogue on Climate Action, which is being led by the Department of Environment, Climate and Communications, and to which my department is collaborating to ensure a strong representation of young people. And this consultation process will launch in the next number of weeks, and I'd urge you all to take the opportunities to contribute to that. And later this year, my own department will hold an outcomes conference to showcase the achievement of the projects that were supported by the Youth Climate Justice Fund, and to identify ways in which that fund can be further developed as part of a holistic approach to addressing climate change. So again, just like to conclude by congratulating ECO-UNESCO and all its partners on the very significant achievement that you have undertaken in researching and collating the responses to this survey. I think the survey is a very important contribution to the ongoing dialogue, but also the building of evidence in this particular area. And I want to commend and really thank all of you for your activism and for your commitment to this issue, which is so important for all of us. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister, for those words, and I suppose for all of the different, and for highlighting all of the different actions that I think the government are going to be taking over the next while. And I suppose for ourselves, we're always very, I suppose, interested and focused on when people are talking about youth-led action and empowering young people. And I think that's so important from our perspective. The empowerment of young people, I think, and them empowering them to take action themselves is so important in not just protecting the environment, but also in alleviating this eco-anxiety that they're feeling at the moment. And I think that's that they can actually feel that they can do something themselves is so important. But also welcome to hear that there is that systemic and systematic change that they're looking for as well. And I think that's so important as well, and that the new climate action bill is coming out, and the other range of actions that you've mentioned also. And really looking forward to working with yourselves on the outcomes conference later on in the year, and on the Youth Climate Justice Fund as well, and into helping you and your department move this forward and develop it into the future as well. So thank you very much for your words and for your contribution today. I'd now like to hand over to Hannah Byrne. Hannah is from SpunOut and was very involved with ourselves and partnered with ourselves on the survey. So Hannah, it's over to you.
Thank you very much, Elaine. I'm just going to quickly share my screen here. Apologies, there we go. So at SpunOut.ie, we sampled 1,043 young people through Snapchat and Instagram for this survey, and hopefully you can see on your screen there some of the ads that we put out over the course of promoting this survey. So we had a huge response from young people. Within the first 24 hours, we had reached our target of young people that we wanted taking this survey, which is a really big achievement because it is not easy to get 1,000 16 to 25-year-olds to take a survey. And the fact that we hit our target so quickly, I think, stands to how important an issue this is for young people. So it's really great that we were able to provide a space for them to share their views. So when it comes to carrying out the survey itself, in SpunOut.ie, we have a very simple methodology when it comes to surveys. First of all, we make sure that the questions and instructions are clear and easy to follow. We make sure that we're speaking in plain English and we're not using any jargon. And this is especially important with climate change, not to assume that the person taking the survey will understand all the technical and scientific terms relating to climate issues. Even if it's an issue that you care about, you can't assume that people are going to understand things at every level. We make sure that every tough question has an easy question afterwards to keep the survey flowing. So if somebody needs to spend a bit more time thinking about their answer for a question, then the next few questions will be shorter, just to keep them moving through and make sure it doesn't feel like too much work. When we're advertising, we make sure that our adverts focus on the impact that young people can have by taking part in our survey, so they know that we are going to listen to their responses and their views, and we're going to do something with it. And finally, we do our best to make sure that the people who took part in the survey get to see the results from it and the impact that it has. So this is important when it comes to the content that we create, that we're pushing that out to the same people who took the survey so that they can see that, yes, we took action on the views that you shared. But it's also important for events like today, where we're taking the time to look at the results from the survey and talk about it and what it might mean for the future. So those are the principles that we stick to when it comes to carrying out survey. It's quite simple, but I think it was definitely a success this time around.
Thank you very much, Hannah. And yeah, I mean, I think that was for us, in ECO-UNESCO, we're delighted to partner with yourselves because we didn't have that survey experience, but I think you've, brought such an amount of experience and, with the, I suppose, range of different surveys that you've done in the past. And I think that was certainly the success of it, and it being clear and easy to follow and was so important, to get young people engaged. And I think also using the social media platforms that young people engage with is so important as well. I'd now like to hand over to Emer Manning. Emer is the youth coordinator within ECO-UNESCO, and Emer has been very involved and coordinated the Youth Climate Justice project within ECO-UNESCO, and has been involved in coordinating this part of the project as well, the survey for us. So Emer, I'm going to hand over to you, and Emer's going to talk us through some of the results that we have from the survey.
Thanks, Elaine, and hi everybody. Give me 2 seconds and I'll just share my screen so that you can see the survey. Now, can you all see my screen? Super, great. So this is just a snapshot of some of the results that we have from the survey. So it was called the Youth Climate Voices, Youth Climate Justice Survey, and it was of course in collaboration with SpunOut.ie. So we split this into 3 major key findings: barriers, solutions, and actions. So the main barriers were that almost 55% of young people feel like nobody listens. And that is a huge number when you think 1 in every 2 young people don't feel like they are being listened to when it comes to climate-based issues. The next is 46% of young people feel that they have a lack of skills that could actually aid them in their action for climate justice. So they feel like they lack skills in areas of public speaking, in organising, and they are the major barriers for them actually taking that action. 36% of young people said that getting in touch with politicians and decision makers is difficult for them. They don't really understand how to do it. And if they did know the pathways, they don't really know what to say or how to reach them best. 35% of young people said that there's not enough information on how to get involved in the first place. So being able to have more local events happening, or more local groups that are actively encouraging young people to take action, is something that they said would be beneficial for them. So that was the key findings in barriers. The next is the key findings in solutions. So as I mentioned before, so almost 59% of young people said more local opportunities to get involved in climate-based issues would be a key solution. 52% said gaining more skills, as we mentioned in the presentations, communication, organising side of things. Half of young people said training on how to get involved in climate issues. So actually, how do I step into that field? And then nearly 40% of young people want to get to know more young climate activists. And I think that goes to show just how important these different youth initiatives are, and also how that's one of the reasons why youth education is now essential as a service, because it's really important for young people to know that they're not alone, particularly when over half of them feel they're not being listened to. It can be very nice to have that support network there. What actions are young people taking? So 89% are reducing their plastic waste, 81% have changed to a greener commute tactic, 60% are raising awareness with friends and family, 53% are buying second-hand clothing and items, 34% are actively campaigning, and 24% are involved in some sort of local environmental action project. So these are some quotes from young people that says that they have been personally impacted by climate change. So we did do some closed answers where they had to pick certain options, but we also did open-ended answers in this survey. And these are direct quotes taken from those young people on those open-ended answers. So I'll read them out to you really quickly. As we have a farm, in recent years, weather has become a huge issue. The weather is completely unpredictable, unusually wet for the time of year and unusually dry at other times of the year. It's hard to plan ahead. My generation feel like it's us that have had to reverse the damage done by many generations before us. I know some people who have even considered not having kids in the future because of the impact of a growing population on pollution and climate change, myself included. And that is particularly worrying, and I should mention that we heard that several times about not having children, and then not wanting to bring children into the world when they are so anxious in the world currently themselves. So that was a pretty worrying finding that kept popping up for us. The last quote is, "Some animal species are extinct, not allowed to build in the town I am from. Everything is more expensive. Forests are getting destroyed, oceans are polluted. Changed my entire diet to help the environment, and I am ridiculed by people not informed about climate change and the damage that eating meat does to the environment." So there's a lot of concerns in the mind of just that one person, but all of those concerns were put forward from many, many other different young people. And I think it's important to say that 33%, so 1/3 of every person who answered this open-ended question mentioned words such as anxiety, fear, nervous, anxious, frightened, scared. So that's a lot of negative terms, and for 1 in 3 young people to be saying that, that is quite a startling statistic. So finally, you can read the full survey. It's a 44-page report, and you can see all of the questions and the answers in the appendixes as well if you want to delve into it. But that is available on ECO-UNESCO.ie. So we'll send you the link then closer to the end of this as well, so you'll have a direct link to that. But what I wanted to do before I move away from this screen is just ask Hannah really quickly. Hannah, did you have more to your presentation about your articles?
Yeah, I can speak quickly about the content that we created based on the survey. So just give me a moment again, I'll get the screen up. And hopefully you can see the slide here on content creation. So when it came to reviewing the survey results, what stood the most out to us was that young people were experiencing high levels of climate anxiety and this sense of powerlessness. But there was also a really clear interest in information around those structural or systemic issues relating to climate change, more so than individual actions they can take. It's also maybe clear from the video that we were watching earlier that a lot of people are already taking those individual actions, so they want to know how can I take it a step further, and the issues that they feel are beyond their control. So based on these needs, we decided to look at some of those wider issues, including the role of businesses and corporations in climate change. But we also wanted to make sure that alongside that information we were providing, we had action-driven articles too. So we provided some tips for getting in touch with businesses and corporations to let them know how you feel about their practices, and also advice around getting in touch with politicians and policymakers to demand change at a government level. And the idea of climate justice, which is obviously what this overall project was about, is woven into those articles throughout, and it's given prominence. But we also wanted to be sure that we were addressing those issues of climate anxiety, since it came up so much in the survey, and that we could find ways to support young people when they're feeling overwhelmed by these issues. So overall, we aim to create content that not only informed young people, but it also empowered them to take action, and that in turn will hopefully help them to feel less overwhelmed when they feel like there's something that they can do and that they can make their voice heard. So there was a wealth of information in the survey, and we have no doubt that we will continue to come back to these results time and time again as we continue to support young people engaging with climate issues. And I think it's going to be a really valuable resource for us to have.
Great, Hannah, thank you so much. So I just wanted to mention about one question specifically that we had in the survey, which was if you had the opportunity to learn more about a particular area, what area would that be? And in the video that you saw earlier on, it mentioned about sustainable energy being the most popular one that young people wanted to learn about, followed by big businesses and corporations, followed by biodiversity. But we did put climate justice as one of the options on that, and the response to climate justice was actually quite low. Only 14% of young people wanted to learn about climate justice. Now, we anticipated that. We had a feeling that that was going to be the case. Because we believe that knowledge on the area in general is low, that young people don't really know what the term climate justice really means. So what we did when we created the the Young Climate Justice Programme was to try and bridge that knowledge gap between young people and what climate justice is. So just to give you all an overview before I show you a second video. The Youth Climate Justice Challenge was aimed at encouraging and empowering young people to take on local action projects based on the theme of climate change. So what the programme included was capacity building workshops for both young people and their youth workers. So we did this, we did workshops on climate justice, we did workshops on how to actually do an action project, how to come up with the concept and implement it, and how to make films. So that was with the Young Irish Filmmakers. We also gave examples to all young people on how to actually get in direct contact with policymakers and decision makers. And it was a requirement of the project that the young people reached out to policymakers themselves. So it was great that we were able to encourage them to finally make contact and realise it's not that difficult and it's not that scary. We also, of course, did our Youth Climate Justice Survey. So that was to garner young people's opinions more broadly on climate justice and climate change, including the barriers and opportunities that young people wanted to see. And finally, we rolled out an entire week of climate justice action. So we did a series of online face-to-face talks from a Monday to a Friday. We did workshops, films, an opportunity for young people to highlight the work that they had done as part of the Climate Justice Challenge. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to show you a video that summarises the entirety of the Youth Climate Justice Challenge.
When I participated in ECO-UNESCO's Youth Climate Justice Challenge, I learned a lot about hard work and that when you put your mind to something, you can have an amazing outcome.
I really like all the activities that we got to do because I found them really fun.
I see like a lot of workshops in future for young people.
The Youth Climate Justice Challenge is a project aimed at empowering young people to take action on the topic of climate justice. The project was led by ECO-UNESCO and worked in collaboration with the Irish Girl Guides, the Girls Brigade, No Name Club, SpunOut and Young Irish Filmmakers. The start of the project was all about exploring the term climate justice. What is it? Who does it impact? And most importantly, what can we do about it? The young people attended workshops on climate justice, project managing and structured dialogue, and how to communicate with policymakers and politicians on issues that mattered to them, despite maybe not being able to vote. Young Irish Filmmakers delivered a workshop guiding participants how to make video using their smartphones to raise awareness.
We help facilitate their ideas into action projects, as well as giving them the skills to create videos not just for this programme, but any other ideas that they have in the future.
Despite the COVID restrictions, 88 young people participated and accepted the challenge. They created 11 separate projects that engaged over 20,000 people on the topic of climate justice. As part of the project, youth groups liaised with local decision makers and engaged with policymakers to educate and influence change in their local area. The participants tweeted local TDs, they emailed councillors, they contacted high street shops to demand answers on workers' rights, they surveyed local schools on energy usage to talk about the topic of fossil fuel, they were interviewed on primetime radio, they wrote articles, created Instagram accounts and ran educational workshops online for their friends and family on the topic of climate justice.
ECO-UNESCO and SpunOut.ie carried out a survey with over 1,000 young people between the ages of 15 and 25 to find out how young people in Ireland feel about climate justice issues. As part of the Climate Justice Challenge, ECO-UNESCO and partners ran Change, an Eco Week ran by young people for young people. Its main aim was to equip young people with the skills and knowledge on how they can take action at an individual practical level and at a local policy level.
There were stories shared by Indigenous activists, workshops on artivism, talks on how to communicate climate change, dance workshops, and opportunities for young people to have their voices heard by politicians and policymakers. At the end of Eco Week, there was a showcase event where young people from the Climate Justice Challenge came and shared their projects with the public to kind of obviously praise the young people for the work they've been doing on climate justice, but also for the young people to share their ideas with other young people so they can be part of that change journey as well.
It's Rebecca McGorn reporting live from GB Studios. Headliner today is the topic of fast fashion and its link to the environment and climate justice.
I spoke to Orla about their participation in the Youth Climate and Justice Project in line with ECO-UNESCO.
My project with my unit has been focusing on fast fashion.
We estimate that our project reached over 10,000 people across all of the platforms that we use.
Survival will expel this blinding eye, so for humanity and planet dialogue.
Your projects are so inspiring, and I really hope you kind of go forward with them, because I believe you will make a change.
Like, I was brought to tears at several moments tonight, and I'm going to remember the things you said. Really, they're like stuck in my brain, and it was really inspirational.
Just remember this. It is the greatest of all mistakes to do nothing because you can only do a little. Thank you.
If you're a young person looking to take climate action and have your voice heard, please sign up to our newsletter by heading to ECO-UNESCO.ie.
I hope you enjoyed that. I've been getting a couple of text messages while that video was playing saying that some people are seeing that the video was freezing slightly for them. If that was the same for you, don't worry, we're going to be putting the video up on our YouTube channel as well, so you will be able to re-watch that without any freezes. Of course, the internet can always be a problem when it comes to trying to share video, so apologies if it was freezing for you, but we will send you that link for later. So now what I want to do is going to give you all a bit of a treat, and we're going to actually invite one of ECO-UNESCO's Youth for Sustainable Development young people to come and talk to you all directly. So I'm going to introduce Sofia Keogh, who is a young person that has worked with us in ECO-UNESCO for quite a while now, and she wants to talk about why she believes climate justice is a really important topic for young people to learn about, and also to discuss her experiences in ECO-UNESCO. So I'm going to pass the mic over now to Sofia.
Hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Sofia Keogh, and I'm part of the Youth for Sustainable Development group in ECO-UNESCO. If you'd asked me what I thought of climate justice 2 years ago, I probably would have said justice for the climate. I had no idea that it was about a fair and equal transition from non-renewable to renewable, from bad for the planet to good for the planet, all while supporting people and leaving no one behind. I had no idea that it meant climate and people, and that it meant that we acknowledge no one experiences the effects of climate change the same way, and the impacts of companies trying to transition to a greener strategy. That people who may lose their jobs because of a company's transition would be retrained to work in a new green economy. If you had asked me 2 years ago, would I like to learn more about climate justice? I honestly would have said no to that too. And that's because I didn't think it was that important, because I didn't know what it meant. My sole focus was on reducing pollution and plastic waste so that we wouldn't be affected in the future, and I wasn't thinking about the effect that climate change has already had on people. And I wasn't aware that people in Ireland were already making this transition from fossil fuels to green energy. So what are we doing in Ireland? How are we making a bigger difference with climate justice, and how are we part of the solution? One example that comes to mind is Byrne. They have transitioned to green strategy. They've moved from brown to green, from peak power plants to renewables, and they've brought all their employees with them. And on top of all of that, they are also renaturing the land. This is an excellent example of what Ireland is capable of and what they can do more of. It is vital that we teach young people about climate justice. It's a big deal. I think it's one of the most important aspects of climate action. How do we go forward if we don't stop to think about everyone? Young people are our future, but they are also here now and ready to help. We are an amazing resource, and we want to be part of Ireland's change. We want to be a part of Ireland's new economy and the solution. Around 2 years ago, I was anxious and worried about the climate. I felt lost and I had no idea where to go. I was not alone in feeling like this. I went looking for a group of people my age with a similar mindset and values, and I found it in ECO-UNESCO. From there, I realized I wasn't alone. I felt I was capable of making a change. I remember one of the first sessions we did was based around climate anxiety. I suddenly realized that there are people out there like me who feel it is their responsibility to be the change and who are actually taking action. And I didn't feel like that at home or with my friends. The group enabled me to do so much more. I've spoken to the Mary Robinson, I interviewed people taking climate action, and I've received a qualification in peer education. All this while having the occasional bubble tea with my new friends. And I know we could do even more. I'm positive we could reach more teenagers. What if we could grow these groups? What if we could have more support? And what if we could reach out to more people? Imagine what we could achieve. Now I understand what climate justice is. There's no way the world will move forward if we forget about all the countries who've been impacted by climate change first. Thailand is one of those countries. The effects of climate change on Thailand, including higher temperatures, floods, droughts, severe storms, and sea level rise, put Thailand's crops and livestock at risk and threaten to submerge Bangkok within the next 20 years. The damage to agriculture, coastal tourism, and the capital city as consequences of climate change will have enormous economic, cultural, and environmental impacts. This is why climate justice is so important. We all have to move forward as one and leave no country behind. There are no physical borders around any country that keeps pollution away from one country or floods away from another. Teenagers are here, ready to help. We just need to be informed. We want to be part of this transition. Don't leave young people behind. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sophia. I think they're, I suppose, amazing kind of words, and I think just for me as the director of ECO-UNESCO, it's amazing to hear, I suppose, the impact of the programs on young people, and how, I suppose, you can transition from coming into the organisation, I suppose, without maybe that knowledge or maybe even that motivation around learning about climate justice and climate issues, and then to transition over a 2-year period. And as you said, to gain all of those kind of skills that you've gained and all of that knowledge that you've gained and that insight, I think, as well, looking at these bigger picture issues and being able to connect them. And then I think for me, when you're talking about young people are here and now and want to be part of the solution, I mean, that's absolutely, that's the thing. So how do we and how do we grow that, and how do we develop that? And I think that's something that we want to do as an organisation. Certainly within ECO-UNESCO, it's something that we plan to do, and we really want to have more young people engaged and offer them the opportunity, as you mentioned, to be able to get involved in these youth groups that can bring young people together to just discuss these issues, develop themselves, and then, as you said, get a QQI. We have an accreditation and a qualification, of course, in peer education as well, and to be able to do that. So thank you so much for your input. Thank you so much for highlighting, I suppose, the impact of the work on you. And I think, looking at, when we're looking at what young people are saying from the survey, and, we in ECO-UNESCO, when we talk about, you spoke about anxiety, we know that, I mean, this is the case because we hear young people saying this all the time, but there's something about, as an organisation, about when you hear people saying it all the time, to actually having the evidence there. And the evidence is the survey, the survey that we've done can give us the evidence and say, well, actually, there's a critical mass of young people. And as Emer said, over a third of young people are feeling anxious around this and about this. And that's a significant sum. And when I was reading the survey, I was reading the remarks from young people, and I must say, even though I've been in this field for a long time, I've been working with young people for many years, hearing and seeing those words and seeing the actual anxiety and fear coming out, I think it's very troubling, I suppose, and we really need to make sure that that isn't the feeling that young people have for their future, and that feeling for the future is a future that is bright and hopeful. And that is what I want to see, and that's what I'd like to see within ECO-UNESCO, that we can provide that type of hope for young people as well. So I think we're at the end of our event today. I really want to thank, and what a wonderful way to end the event, Sophia. I want to thank everybody for working with us on the project. I want to have a very special thanks to SpunOut. Thank you so much for working with us on this project. We really are delighted to have partnered with you, and I hope that both organisations we go on to continue to work together in some way into the future. We really we're delighted to have you on board and to work with yourself. themselves. I'd like also to thank thank the Minister for being here today. I want to thank any of the guest speakers and Hannah and Emer as well. Emer, who's been coordinating the programme. Thank you so much for all of your work in this, and thanks to the rest of the ECO-UNESCO team as well, and to all of the staff and volunteers within ECO-UNESCO who put so much time and effort into programmes like the Youth Climate Justice Challenge, and then also into the survey as well. I want to thank the Minister for being here today. We're really grateful that he could attend and hear some of the results, even though I have to again apologise for my technical glitch, where I must have looked like I just went right into space, but came back straight away. So that's one of the things when you're working, when you're actually in working offline and in this technical kind of world. I want to also say a huge thank you to the partners within the Youth Climate Justice Challenge, the Irish Girl Guides, Girls Brigade, No Name Club, and Young Irish Filmmakers, as well as SpunOut. We're delighted to work with yourselves on the project, and looking forward, I suppose, to the future iteration of whatever this Youth Climate Justice Challenge or the Youth Climate Justice Fund brings. Very much looking forward to linking up and liaising as well. I suppose for myself, just to finish off, for me, when I was looking at the survey and the motivation around doing it, it really was, we'd been hearing, as I said, hearing all of this from young people, that they were concerned about climate change and climate issues, that they had all of these, I suppose that they weren't having their voices heard, and as I said, we were looking to get some evidence for that. So that was really a motivation behind what we've done. I think the survey does provide us with that evidence on what young people are feeling at the moment, and I actually think it's a really important piece of work. I know you'd say that, okay, it's our piece of work. Yes, it is, and it's ours and SpunOut, but I think it's a very, very important piece of work. And what we'd like to do is build and grow on this. I think, as I said, it shows the anxiety young people are feeling. It's showing the actions that young people are feeling as well. I think, as Sofia said, it's showing that young people want to be part of the solution, and they want that systemic change, whether that be coming from, I suppose, society in general, which it has to do, but coming from that government level and from that big business and from business level as well. So we're all in this together and moving forward on it. So thank you very much, everybody, for being here with us today. And please do go to our website, ECO-UNESCO.ie, and please do download the report, read it and use it. We want the report and the evidence there to be used by everybody. So please feel free to use it. And thank you very much once again, and have a lovely day.
And the very last thing before I shut down is that there are links in the chat to that video on our YouTube channel that was glitchy for some people. Both videos that we showed you today are now available on YouTube, and there is a link available now as well to the actual survey report, that resource as well. So thank you all so much, and we'll hope to see you all soon. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.